We have been so conditioned to believe that dinosaurs are these prehistoric beasts that lived until 65 million years ago that if you dare suggest to anyone they went on Noah's Ark, then eventually just went extinct recently, you're laughed at for following fables instead of science. But remember, the evolutionary scientists need to convince you that dinosaurs lived long before man so they can continue to sell their evolutionary theory. If dinosaurs were alive in just the last few thousand years, Darwin's theory of evolution goes completely out the window. So let's examine some little-known facts about dinosaurs. First, dinosaurs were nothing more than reptiles that continued to grow. Most people are unaware of the fact that reptiles never stop growing in size. Now, as humans, we know that our noses and our ears never stop growing, but the rest of us does. Same with animals and most of the animal kingdom. They grow to a certain size, then stop growing. While they do get older, they don't get any bigger. This is not true, however, with reptiles, as reptiles continue to grow in size until the day they die. That's why when you see a tortoise that's lived for over 100 years, it gets to be the size of a bathtub. If a tortoise could live for 500 years, it would literally grow to be the size of a garage and would be considered nothing more than one of the many unique types of dinosaur. When we look at dinosaurs, we need to realize that they're nothing more than different types of reptiles, lizards, etc. that continued to grow in size for as long as God allowed them to live. If we remember, the Bible says that before Noah's flood, man lived to be hundreds of years old. Methuselah lived to be 969 years old. It was after the flood that God shortened the lifespan of man. So if God allowed man to live to be several hundred years old, it's very plausible that he also would have allowed animals to live that long too. Remember, we know today that reptiles never stop growing in size throughout their lifetime. So think about what a gecko or a Komodo dragon might look like if it lived for 500 years. Can you say dinosaur? The dinosaurs on Noah's Ark is actually a much simpler prospect than most people assume. First, the fossil record confirms that while there were a handful of dinosaur types that grew to the large size of the Tyrannosaurus rex or the Brachiosaurus, the overwhelming majority of dinosaurs were only about the size of a sheep, approximately 3 to 5 feet in length. That's exactly what the fossil record shows. And that, of course, wouldn't be a problem for Noah's Ark at all. And as for the occasional larger type of dinosaur, God would have merely sent babies to Noah. I mean, think about it. When God sent 2 elephants to Noah to go on the ark, do you really think God would have sent 2 massive 12-foot tall full-grown elephants that are past their reproductive prime? Or do you think maybe he would have sent a couple of babies that would eventually grow and repopulate the earth after the flood? Common sense dictates that he would have sent baby elephants, just like he would have sent a couple of cute little baby Tyrannosaurus lizards that, just like the cute little lion cubs, would eventually one day grow into fierce and dangerous beasts. The evidence that dinosaurs lived with man in recent history is staggering and overwhelming due to the countless artifacts, drawings, carvings, statues, mosaics, and depictions throughout history of Brachiosaurus, Stegosaurus, Plesiosaur, Pterodactyl, Triceratops, T-Rex, and more, as we document in detail later on in this CD. If man didn't live with these creatures, you have to ask, how did artists throughout history and in cultures all over the world happen to recreate these beasts thousands of years ago to, coincidentally, look identical to what we see in the dinosaur books in museums today that supposedly died 65 million years ago, well before man ever came on the scene? Some may say, well, maybe people in the past just happened to see dinosaur skeletons back then a few thousand years ago and draw the dinosaurs from those skeletons. Well, not so, and here's why. Dinosaur skeletons aren't just found lying on the ground intact somewhere so people walking by can look down and see what the dinosaur looked like. The bones are separated, fragmented, and embedded deep within the ground and mountains, with most of them missing. Occasionally you might find a piece of a single dinosaur bone sticking out of a rock here or there, but that's all anyone in ancient history would have ever found. They would not have been able to create the image of the entire beast without the entire skeleton. Yet the science of paleontology didn't develop until the early 1800s. The process of digging out and excavating dinosaur bones from rock didn't begin until then. Consequently, the first complete skeleton of a dinosaur wasn't even constructed until the early 1800s. In 1841, British anatomist Richard Owen coined a brand new word, dinosaur. It was from the Greek dinos, meaning great or terrible, and sauros, meaning lizard. That's where you get dinosaur. Before 1841, the word dinosaur didn't exist. That doesn't mean dinosaurs didn't exist. It just means that these giant reptilian creatures weren't called dinosaurs. They were called dragons, and dragon sightings have been documented and recorded throughout history by eyewitnesses and have been part of legend in cultures all over the earth from England to China. This documentation is also presented later in this CD, but for now you need to ask yourself, if dinosaurs died out 65 million years before modern man evolved, and the first dinosaur skeleton was not excavated and constructed until the early 1800s, how did human artwork throughout history manage to depict several types of dinosaurs that look identical to the dinosaur depictions we see in the science books today? The answer is simple. They drew what they saw. And later on in this CD, we're going to give you the actual documentation and